Well, welcome everyone to our webinar today on navigating big emotions, ADHD plus parenting strategies. I am Dr. David Palmer, and it is my honor to address you today from the Inclusion Matters Collective. Just putting up a few things here to make sure that our webinar is going to be the greatest that it could be. So thank you for joining us, and we want to just go ahead and get started. Oh, sorry about that. Let me mute that. So my name is Dr. David Palmer, and I am a ADHD parenting specialist. I am a dad of ADHD kids. I am an individual with ADHD. I am a teacher in a special education classroom, working with students who are ADHD, who have autism, learning disabilities, all those kinds of things. And so it is really an honor for me to be able to address even this issue today, which is to give you some practical strategies for dealing with those big emotions with your children with ADHD plus. Now, let me just start out here by saying, what is ADHD plus? Well, ADHD rarely travels on its own, right? It comes along with all kinds of other things that make having ADHD both an amazing thing, but also very challenging at times. And so we have the diagnosis of ADHD. We know that there is a combined type that has the hyperactivity, impulsive, but also the inattentive. And so all of these things impact the emotions of our kids with ADHD. And so they can manifest themselves in different ways. It can manifest itself with ADHD plus oppositional defiance. It could show up as ADHD plus anxiety. It could be ADHD plus learning disabilities. So what I want to focus on, though, in this webinar today is I want to focus on how can we come alongside and really support our ADHD plus kids when they are growing and learning, and how do we nurture their emotional regulation, which will lead to their emotional resilience. And so that's what we're going to do. I want to invite you at any time, if you have a question or a comment, you are welcome to go ahead and type that in the chat. We will have a Q&A session a little bit later, but if something's on your mind and you got to type it down, again, as a person with ADHD, I know sometimes if I don't write it down or do it right away, I'm going to forget. So feel free to do that at any time. And I want to start out first and foremost with a poll. And this poll is asking the question, what's the biggest challenge you face in helping your child manage their emotions? And I'm giving you 4 possibilities there. Identifying triggers. You might say, the hardest part about supporting my child with ADHD is that identifying what's triggering them, implementing maybe some calming strategies, maybe maintaining routines and structure. Maybe it's communicating effectively to them, especially when they are exhibiting those big emotions. And so go ahead and click on one of those answers there in the poll, and we will see how we do here. All right, so maybe all of them. Maybe we're thinking, that's why I'm here, is because I struggle and find all of these things challenging, and that's okay. So as we move on, I want to hopefully address many of those challenges for you and give you some insights on those. But first, let me bring this down. Let's make it personal. Let's introduce a child, Lily, with ADHD. She was recently diagnosed with ADHD by her pediatrician. She's been dealing with some big emotions, particularly sadness, frustration, and at times shutting down. Her parents are deeply concerned, not only because of those big emotions that Lily's been showing, but it's affecting her ability to work at school. At school, even during breaks like recess and lunch, Lily will just pace back and forth along the playground by herself. She refuses to try anything new. When her parents ask her to do a chore, typically she refuses. She says, no, I'm not going to do it, and typically runs to her room, lies down on her bed, and then falls asleep for a while. And so Lily's parents are just unsure. They're not understanding really what's going on with Lily. When she was younger, she seemed to be a much more happy child, but now they're just at a loss and their hearts are breaking. They feel like they're losing their Lily, and they want to know, what is it that we need to do to best support our child? And so I want you to think for a moment, what would you do? Let's say Lily is your child. And of course, your child with ADHD Plus might have some different manifestations of what's going on, but what might you do to try to support Lily in this situation? Think about it. Think about what is it that you might want to say or might want to do. Who might you reach out to for guidance? Let's say you're just, I know I need to reach out. I need to find some kind of guidance and support. Where would you reach out? Or if you were friends of Lily's parents, where would you suggest that they go first to get the guidance they need to support and love and nurture their child? And then how are Lily's behaviors similar or different maybe from your own children and their behaviors? Again, ADHD is like a spectrum, so to speak. There's the hyperactivity, running on the engine all the time, can't sit still, always seem to be getting into things. There's the inattentive type where, again, you're saying, hey, I need you to do this, but you don't feel like they're connecting or processing, or there's impulsive behaviors. Whatever it is, I want us to think and make this personal, because I see a lot of good advice that comes through social media and blogs, but I love doing these webinars because it makes it personal for us. These are our children that we love, and so we want to always keep that in mind as we go through this webinar. There's really three things that are really important to me in the work that I do as an individual for myself, as well as when I'm coaching parents and families. And that is this head, heart, hand idea, where we're looking at head, understanding. What can we understand better about our child? What can we understand better about ADHD? What can we understand better about ourselves and about how we respond and our triggers and our reactions and our capacities? And then there's the heart component, which is the empathy part, right? It's the part where we are connecting, we are showing compassion, we are feeling what our kids are feeling, and we don't come at it as a point of judgment. We don't come at it as a point of, hey, let's just fix this, but we really enter into their experience, and we know and we feel, and it weighs on us what they're facing. And then that is action. We got to support them. We're raising our kids, we're nurturing them, we're supporting them, we are assisting them, advocating for them, all of those things. So I think there's an order to this. I think understanding, and once we gain a better understanding, helps us to cultivate empathy. And as we cultivate empathy with understanding, that leads us to actions that are actually very helpful, that are actually nurturing, that are actually individualized, that are actually helping our kids build resilience. And so keep this head, heart, hand model in mind as we work through our time today. So quickly, I just wanted to build a bridge between understanding ADHD and how it affects emotions. And so if you have read anything about ADHD, you've probably come across that ADHD primarily affects executive functions. And executive functions are the managers in our brain that enable us to do various things. And actually, I put some up here on the slide. And I remember the most important executive functions by this acronym great minds. So really at the top is goal setting. So executive functions are the managers in our brain, and that frontal part of our brain that help us not only set goals, but see the value of those, get things accomplished. If I say my goal today is I'm going to get my office clean, I need these executive functions to help me to do that. So one is response inhibition. Response inhibition is when my body wants to impulsively do something and react a certain way that I say, well, I shouldn't act that way. I need to stop. I need to wait. So my response to cleaning my office might be, you know what? I'd rather just go watch a football game. No, no, no. I got to get this clean. I got to get this done. Emotional control, is an executive function. And so that leads to attention and being able to attend to things. If I'm goal setting and cleaning my office, I need to attend to the things that are going on. Try not to attend to the things that might be distracting to me. I need to manage my time. Also, there's working memory, initiation, which is tasks starting something, navigation and planning. How am I going to accomplish these tasks? How am I going to organize myself in doing that? And am I able to be flexible in that? And so when you're thinking about ADHD in all human beings, that area, that prefrontal cortex where those executive functions exist, are developing, and they develop throughout all of our childhood, teenage years, and usually aren't developed fully in our brains until around 25. When we throw ADHD into this, what happens is these executive functions become more challenging. And so what we see is that with ADHD, it's hard to get tasks initiated. It's hard to focus attention because we're not attention deficit in the sense of we can't pay attention. We actually, it's the opposite. We pay attention to everything. There's no filter. And what we're talking about today is this whole aspect of response inhibition and emotional control that our brain and our kids' brains are really struggling with. And so it comes out in these big emotions. It comes out in these impulsive types of behaviors. And so we have to understand that that's part of what's going on in the ADHD brain. And so that leads to lots of these challenges, right? There's intensity in our emotions. There's this sense of impulsivity where you're just acting without thinking. There's these mood variations that happen. So you can go from being very excited, very hyper, to very sad, very depressive. And really, even though we say that ADHD primarily affects executive functioning, what it really shows us is this part of our brain, this center part of our brain called the limbic system, which is our amygdala and our hypothalamus and our pituitary and our adrenal glands. That whole system there is on high alert. Okay. And so when you look at that picture down there, you see there's a brain in the bottom left corner there. That front part of the brain, if you think of it like the hand brain model, that front part of the brain there, that's the executive functioning. And then in the middle of the brain there, the midbrain, is the hypothalamus, it's the amygdala, it's the emotional control center. That amygdala is like both a smoke detector and the fire alarm. So when a child or any person really feels unsafe, they feel threatened, they feel overwhelmed, they feel stressed, then it's going to kick in and it's going to produce this cortisol, and then that's going to affect the brain, and it's kind of this feedback system. And so we have to understand that even though ADHD primarily affects executive functioning, that we don't respond to these big emotions initially by trying to reason with that part of the brain. And if you've ever been a person with big emotions, or you've been around kids with big emotions, you try to ask questions. What did you do that for? Or why are you making such a big deal about this? Or just stop it, or you need to calm down. All of those things are not going to have the impact we think they're going to have, because as long as that amygdala and that overactive limbic system is firing, it's going to cut off any ability for executive functioning. So if we want to deal with the executive functioning, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it has to be in times outside of, and building resilience outside of the moments of those big emotions. And so we have to approach those big emotions a little bit differently with this understanding. Also, what we need to recognize is this idea that I discovered by reading some of the best trauma-informed therapists, thinking about the window of tolerance. And the window of tolerance is like this river, and we're kind of floating down it in life. And some places the river narrows. And when that window of tolerance or that river narrows, it becomes very fast paced and it becomes very unsafe, or at least we perceive what's going on as being unsafe. When that window of tolerance gets bigger, we slow down and we can actually be at this balanced, calm state of mind where we feel like we're in control of things going around us. We feel relaxed. We feel able to effectively function in the things of our lives. We can use those executive functions. We're resilient. We can take the challenges as life throws at us. But as that window shrinks, what happens is we don't feel in control. And so we become very dysregulated. And it can go one of two ways. It can go dysregulation, where we start to feel agitated, frustrated, anxious. We feel upset. We know that feeling, but it can quickly turn into a hyperarousal, where now we are experiencing that fight or flight. And we're kind of in that red zone. And now we are going to just explode whatever we're feeling. We're going to say what's on our mind. We're going to react in a way that is just going to show that we are in a place where our window of tolerance is very, very small. It can go the other way though, like we see with Lily, right? It can go where you start feeling overwhelmed and you're like, I can't do this. This is overwhelming. This happens a lot with students in school when teachers give the students big projects that they have to do with maybe many parts to it, and kids with ADHD are become quickly overwhelmed. They get very upset, and then they can actually shut down, right? So there's the hypoarousal, where now you just don't care. You feel tired, you feel depressed. Now, what affects this window of tolerance is stress and trauma, but what also affects the ability to expand our window of tolerance is the ADHD brain. And so our goal is to see resilience, not just being able to bounce back from difficult circumstances or to grow through them, but resilience also is this ability that we can widen the window of tolerance and keep it open when times are tough. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, to have the skills and the tools and the abilities to expand that window of tolerance. And as you see there in the diagram, that could be things from listening to music or engaging in hobbies. And we'll talk about some of the things that you can investigate that might help your child open their window of tolerance. The key thing I'm going to say throughout this webinar, though, is that the key to having an open window of tolerance in your children is to be exhibiting that same wide window of tolerance in ourselves, okay? And so what we're going to look at then is how are some ways that we can do that. But before we get there, I just wanted to throw up another poll here for a moment. This is poll number 2. How do you typically respond when your child experiences these big emotions? Do you typically listen and validate their feelings? Do you try to distract them sometimes with maybe humor, or just get them thinking about something else? Hey, look at that over there. Do you try to provide solutions immediately? And we just talked about that. Maybe you try to appeal to their executive functioning. Do you encourage them to calm down first? Or is there another option? Okay, so you can go ahead and pick one of those options and see which ones you typically respond with as your child is experiencing those big emotions. Okay, so now we're thinking about that, our typical responses and how those responses can help our children when they're experiencing those big emotions. And so notice here, I put the emotional roller coaster. Doesn't it seem like that at times when we are raising or teaching or working with children with ADHD? We have to understand that there's this heightened sense of sensitivity in them. They're not just being sensitive in a negative way, but their senses, because again of that window of tolerance, are often on high alert. So things might seem like they're not a big deal to us, but to our children and what they're sensing in their nervous system and how they're feeling and how they are engaging with their sense of safety, it's a big thing. And so that causes these rapid changes in mood, these intense reactions, and then it becomes very challenging and difficult to get ourselves in that place where we can regulate our emotions. And so I want you to think and just reflect for a moment, what does this ride look like in your home? It could be, there's certain times of the day. I remember when our kids were young, the emotional roller coaster would hit full throttle when we had homework time. And I think a lot of families battle with that, right? It's homework time, and then all of a sudden it's like, and then we're like, no, we got to get this done, and we're not getting out of here until we finish this, and we go on and on and on and things like that. But we have to understand that there was something there going on in that moment, that homework moment, that really turned into a feeling of fight or flight or danger. Okay. And so you can go from calm in the car, home from school, to the table, start the homework, and then things just change 180 degrees. And then there's that difficulty, right? There's that difficulty in self-soothing, that difficulty in regulating their emotions. So one of the models that I've developed over these past few years, as I've really thought about this and how to best help and coach parents in that, is using this ADHD Parenting Blueprint. And there's 6 parts to it. I'm going to work through some of this with you right now. But the first part up here at the top is we have to embrace. We have to embrace with understanding who our children are. That these are our children. They are who they are. And while there is room for growth, they are who they are. And so we need to gain an understanding, and instead of always thinking about how do we need to change their behavior, we need to start looking at ourselves and thinking, how can I better understand what they're facing, what they're feeling, both from a neurological perspective, like we talked about, from a life experience perspective. And then we plan, right? We plan. If we're going to build a tree house here that's going to be resilient, there has to be some foresight into this. We can't just be reactive. We have to be proactive. And then number 2 is we connect. We connect with this strong foundation with our children through positive communication, through co-regulation, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And then we are in a place then when that connection is there and that trust is there, then we can coach them. Then together we can create the supports and the structure. Instead of imposing it on them, we're coaching them, right? We're walking through this process with them together. As we do that, we are empowering them. So we're teaching, we're modeling, we're encouraging them along the way. And then as we do that, we are amplifying their voices, making sure that they get the access they need, that they're understood for who they are, that they are building a sense of independence and being able to regulate on their own. And then we understand with the 6th part is that it's going to be a ongoing nurturing journey of cultivation. This isn't a one and done thing. This isn't you just teach your kid one time how to do this and everything's okay. It's an ongoing journey. So I want to go ahead and just give you some insights on what this actually looks like practically, right? So embrace means that we first have to recognize that our kids have big emotions, and we have to say, we know, or at least we're going to investigate, what are the things that really trigger these emotions? What are situations, words we say, environments that can bring about these big emotions? And we have to understand that it's not that they're always trying to be intentional in their reactions. They're not thinking, okay, today, how can I make my parents or my teacher's life miserable? Okay. Most of the time, these are things that are going to come upon them, and their reactions to these things are often not going to be controllable. Even though we think so as adults, they're not. So, what are some things that might commonly trigger our ADHD kids? Well, sometimes it's change. I know as a kid growing up, I didn't know I had ADHD until a few years ago as an adult. Now it makes a lot of sense, but one of the biggest challenges I had in life was change when things didn't go the way that it usually goes. So transitions can be that sensory overload, being in loud places, bright rooms, bright lights, even certain textures of clothing. I remember when I was a kid how I was just um, so preoccupied with how tight my shoes were tied. And so when somebody would tie my shoes for me and it was too tight, it would just bug me. Social challenges, those might be it. And you may want to reflect for a moment on what you see are some of your child's triggers. It could be how we respond, even our tone of voice. There are so many things there, but ultimately what's going on is it's being interpreted by them as lack of cues of safety. When that amygdala goes off, which it should, it's supposed to warn us, hey, there's danger here. We need to react. We need to move. Again, fight or flight, right? If we're in that place, our blood's going to our muscles, our heart rate is going faster, we're breathing, we're ready to move, right? But it doesn't matter if the threat is real or perceived, it's there. And because automatically the window of tolerance in ADHD is smaller, then those cues of safety and the lack thereof are going to be really important. And so what do we have to do is we have to plan, we have to understand, we have to identify some of these personal triggers, we have to anticipate, we have to navigate them. So if we know we're going to a loud place, we bring our kids their loop ear or their headphones, their earplugs. If we know that, tags are gonna bother them and set them off so that there's these big emotions right before we're trying to get in the car to go to school, we cut them off. And I remember my wife having to go through and do that with our kids' school uniforms, making sure that there was nothing there that could trigger them in that. And it's us to learn, it's us to ask, and not to judge, not to accuse, not to say, well, that's just the way it is. Okay. Then we can connect. When we have that understanding, we can connect and we can activate the power of affirmation, acknowledging our children's emotions. Now, there's a little bit of debate out there, affirmation versus validation. Some folks are saying we shouldn't validate or say it's okay for you to get upset and throw things at me or whatever because you feel upset, you feel angry. You can deal with that and look at that on your own. But the key point I have here is that we have to acknowledge, we have to affirm, I see that, I can see that you are upset. We don't just try to minimize, we don't try to deny, we don't try to say it's not a big deal. Okay. And so some of the techniques for that, again, is having an open conversation about our feelings. And that means us being transparent and open to talk about, I was frustrated too in that moment. I was getting upset too in that moment. I could see that what I was saying was really, really, really getting to you. Having safe spaces to talk about our emotions, having tools that will help us to help our kids kind of connect what they're feeling with the emotion. Okay. The thing is, I see you. That's the point. I see you. I'm not going to just minimize what you're feeling. And as our kids feel that connection and they can feel that trust and they can feel like they can open up about their big emotions and they know that they're in a safe space, and that will open up the opportunity, the window of tolerance, for us to help them in those moments and to teach and model as we move forward. So we're doing that as we build emotional awareness. So we're kind of like the coach, right? We're the coach where we're not just saying do this, but we're helping them practice. Being a coach for my kids, softball and other things at times, I've learned that you can't just say, hey, do this. Why can't you do this? What's wrong with you? Why can't you just pass the ball like this? No, it's teaching them, it's coming alongside of them, it's showing them, it's modeling. And the same goes for emotional awareness. We're teaching them to be more aware of what's going on. You can use charts like this. I love these charts because it goes beyond just the few, but depending on how old your children are, depends on how many choices you would give them. So you may want to say, hey, we want to narrow this down to maybe 5 or so, but as they get older, as kids get into, 4th, 5th grade, even more older, you're going from these basic 6 emotions and you can go out. Okay, so you can think about how you feeling. I'm really angry. Okay, and then you can look at and start developing a vocabulary. Well, we're angry, but what's going on? What's behind that anger? Are you just mad? Are you offended because somebody said something about you that was untrue? Are you jealous? Are you angry because somebody has something that you don't have? And then you can, build that out even further, right? Agitated, enraged, furious, disgusted. So there's this range, this spectrum of feelings that we can help our kids navigate through. So that way they have a language to speak and we have a common language that we're speaking together. You can also encourage open communication about feelings. Okay, how are you feeling right now? I love gratitude. We'll talk about that a little bit more. What's a time maybe that you felt sad? And how did you make yourself feel better in that moment? And then as we're also sharing with the appropriate amount of vulnerability and transparency, we're building this language that having emotions is okay. A lot of us who are a little bit older, we didn't live in homes where there was this kind of dialogue about emotions. We either stuffed them down or we kind of threw them out there, and then kind of everybody's, when the dust settled, everybody's just kind of cool. They don't talk about it, just kind of move on kind of thing. But our kids, especially living in this day and age, need to have more opportunities and more of a language and vocabulary and a space to be able to grow that emotional awareness. We can also empower them with various types of calming strategies and explaining to them these calming strategies, why they work, what's going on in your body, where are you feeling being anxious right now? Where are you feeling the fear? And then understanding that that's part of how our body is responding. And so what can we do with our bodies to help our brains and our nervous systems know that our brains and our bodies know that we're okay? So deep breathing, so the box breathing, breathe in 4, hold it for 4, breathe out 4, hold it again for 4, star breathing, all those are the same. Just because what's happening is our response is tied into what's known as our vagal nerve. And so the idea is that as we are breathing, we're giving a signal to our vagus nerve, hey, things are okay. We're not in any kind of danger. We are safe. Progressive muscle relaxation, so tensing your toes and relaxing them, or grounding techniques where they're sitting in the chair with their feet flat on the ground and making their spine stretch out. These kinds of things are signaling our brains and our bodies we're okay. Mindfulness techniques, using the 5 senses, writing down things that we're grateful for. Sometimes, again, a very helpful distraction is use something like a glitter jar. We used to have these little things, and I still use them in my classroom, where you can turn it over almost like a timer, but the little bubbles come down and they kind of begin focusing on those things in the moment, which gives their body a sense to just take a break and relax. Spending time outside is huge. And so I know that you're going to have to really work through which calming strategies work best for your child, because you might say, hey, let's do some breathing. I don't want to breathe, but they may want to go and squish and play with the Play-Doh or something that really helps them to do that, or play with their fidget or something. And so again, the head, heart, hands, we're thinking that these things are connected. So our feelings are affecting what we think, how we behave, what we think, how we behave, the actions, the habits that we do can affect our feelings. so on and so forth. And so a lot of times we want to go straight for the thoughts area here and say, okay, let's change our thinking. But sometimes we need to start here. Okay, how does this making you feel when this happens? And then we can get to, what is this saying about you? A lot of times I notice we want to go straight for the behavior, right? And even in school as an educator, I see this. In fact, we've had discussions. How do we help manage behaviors? Well, you can't just focus on one of these. You have to say, what are the thoughts, the beliefs behind it, and then what are the different kinds of feelings and affections that are going on at that same time. Now, all of this is so important because we need to understand about co-regulation. And to expect our kids to work through this on their own is not realistic. We need an interactive, a relational, a connection approach to help our children be able to understand themselves, why they're feeling what they're feeling, finding that balance between warmth and boundaries. We want to make sure that we're not being authoritarian. Just stop it. Go to your room until you can stop crying. We don't just want to be permissive. Like I said, it's okay. Whatever you feel is what you feel, but you're trying to really work this balanced approach. Okay. So that causes us to need to be calm and present in the moment. And we need to understand that our facial expressions, the vagus nerve is affected by the facial expressions, our tone of voice, our body position. And if we are within a wide window of tolerance, then we're in a good place where we can promote our children to be in a place of learning, a place of curiosity, to be receptive, to be engaged. And so that means that we have to be regulated. We have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, which I'll share in just a moment here. And then when the stressors come and the triggers come, we are in a place where we can create a safe space, a space where they can allow that amygdala to say, hey, we're in a safe place, we're in a good place. And then we can begin to teach some of these other means that we can help them understand their brain and body and how they can use even their emotions in very powerful and positive ways. I had a video, but we're just going to go ahead and skip that. So again, creating safe spaces is so important, whether you're at home, whether you're a classroom teacher, whatever it is, it's important for our kids to know that they have a safe space where they can work through their emotions. And so even in my classroom, we have all kinds of tools to help them. But when our kids were younger, they're all teenagers now, but when they were younger, we even installed, swings in our playroom so they could, because that swinging helped them regulate. There's all kinds of ideas. Again, you want to make sure that you are incorporating your child in this process. Again, predictability is so important. I was just reading something before I signed on here. I think it was Dr. Mona Delahook talking about this sense of routines and structure provide safety, and safety then provides ability for our children to grow and learn and be in that green zone of the window of tolerance. And then even having routines about when we're feeling those big emotions. When I feel really upset, I can go to my room and scream in my pillow, and then I can come out and I can talk with mom or dad again. The key with anything is consistency. If we're always changing things up, we're actually making the issues much worse, because what we're doing now is we're adding into the thing that our brain sees as a major threat. And so you got to think about what works well. There's no prescription. There's no sense of saying, well, you need to do this and you need to have this and you need to make this chart. Whatever it is, it needs to work for your family. It needs to be something you can do consistently, something that you've worked on together so that there's a mutual understanding. And then there's a lot of grace and a lot of patience as you're working through it. As they get older, but even when they're younger, collaborative problem solving is a way to amplify their voices. Okay, so what that means is that we're giving them, again, voice and choice. we're involving them instead of giving them the solutions and telling them this is what you need to do. Now we're in a place where we can say, hey, let's work on this together. Let's do this together. And as you see there, a parent and a child building a puzzle. It doesn't have to be this major, thing. It's just something very simple. Tuning in, understanding their interests, their strengths, their preferences. So if this child loves building their puzzles, and it's a hard puzzle, let's say it's a 1,000-piece puzzle, having parent, trusted grown-up caretaker with them, helping them solve problems, there's going to be a lot more openness there because that window of tolerance is bigger. We've got to work on listening. We've got to work on active listening. We got to work on putting away the devices or whatever, and just not just hearing what they're saying, but connecting, and then helping them in these moments. Oh, I see that. I can see you're getting frustrated. And then that can turn into a good conversation. And then we're looking at long-term growth strategies. We're cultivating. It's a marathon, not a race, not a sprint. I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we have to understand that we're continually modeling and teaching these self-advocacy skills. We're doing this with our kids at school. When you need something from your teacher, you need help, you need to take a break, you need to advocate for yourself. You need to respectfully, but also very, in a sense, forcefully, respectfully, make sure you're getting what you need, and letting people know what you need and why you need it, and fostering this sense of resilience and understanding that transformation takes a lifetime. So this isn't, again, something that happens, if you get it down by the time they're 6, you think, oh, we got it. No, because then what's going to happen? Preteen, puberty, teenage years. And so you see this as a growth opportunity, a journey for parent and child to really say, hey, we're on this journey. And it's hard because as parents, we're coming with our own journey. We're coming with our own experiences. We're coming with our own trauma, our own neurodivergence, our own mental health challenges. And so we have to understand that we're doing this together. And so what type of support do you find most beneficial as a parent? What are some things that you're finding are really helpful? So in our poll here, let me stop this poll. Let's go to our next one. And what type of supports? Professional coaching or counseling? Maybe you go to blogs, printed resources, books, ebooks, things like that. Maybe you enjoy online resources, online communities of like-minded parents, maybe Facebook groups or membership groups of organizations where you can really connect with others who are on the parenting journey. And maybe you like things like this, workshops, webinars. So which do you find most engaging, most beneficial? It may not even be on this list. Okay. So just a few more thoughts that kind of turn the focus back towards us. Just again, was reading some news articles this morning, and daily, just like love to read the news. One on the four most important things about parenting, and number 4 was taking care of ourselves, and how even developmental science shows that when we are stressed, when we are dysregulated, we're going to have a hard time helping our children in those moments. And I know this is one I get pushed back on the most because most parents are like, I don't have time for this. My schedule's hectic. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to raise my kids. There's so many different family dynamics at play. So I get it. And so we have to at least try to make little steps, realizing we're not perfect. We're going to mess up. We can't do everything. Again, if you're scrolling through and you're looking at parents who are like, oh yeah, I self-care, I took myself to the to the beach and just relax. And I can never do that. Well, what is it that we might be able to do? What's one small thing that we could do? Or maybe ask someone to say, hey, can you help me with this? Because again, it's the oxygen mask principle of the plane, right? If we're struggling to breathe, we're going to have a much harder time helping our child get their mask on to breathe. So we have to make sure we're breathing, and then we're in a position where we can come alongside them and really support them. Again, being realistic, again, being gracious, being forgiving of ourselves. Connecting, again, I get some pushback on this because I don't have time. And, I'll be honest with you, a lot of times the, local support groups aren't very helpful. And so it's finding the right ones, but look locally and see what kind of support groups you have in your area, dealing particularly with ADHD or the ADHD Plus. And then maybe there's some online communities that you can join or connect with and talk to trusted teachers and educators and healthcare providers that get it, that can really provide that connection, because you're not alone. You're not alone in this journey. You are not facing something that is absolutely unique to you. No, we all know what it's like. We all have been in the trenches. We've all struggled. We've all put our heads down going, oh, is this ever going to change? And so they can find some hope there. You can find some encouragement there. And then you may need some professional support as well. So that could be looking at different kinds of therapists, like occupational therapists, play therapists, art therapists, those kinds of things. Making sure that you're working with qualified mental health professionals as well, looking for things like what are medications an option and what are out there, or what kind of different supports and groups maybe I can get my child in to help them after school or that. So it's putting down sometimes our pride and our fear of what people will think about us as parents, and understanding that everyone needs help. We need help, and then being willing to go and seek that out. And then when you have kind of everything there, you can start building this plan together, an action plan. And that's one of the things I love to come alongside with parents and do in my coaching, is to help you put together your action plan, to put the blueprint out before us and say, what can we do to help us in these areas of embracing and connecting and coaching and empowering and advocating and cultivating over time? What can we do that are realistic, that are solution focused, that are helped by setting realistic, SMART goals, those kinds of things, creating personalized plans. I love doing that. I love helping and just walking through parents, not telling them what to do, but saying, here, what about this? And what do you think about this? Or what works here? Or looking at who you are with the family dynamic, whatever that is, and being able to come up and to really come up with these key strategies, again, one or two at a time, because we know that this is a marathon, not a sprint. So any questions or closing thoughts before we head out? I do have one more thing I wanted to share with you if there were no questions. Again, I'll show you at the end here where if you have a question after watching this, you're thinking, David, I really want to know about this. I'll give you a way to contact me and the community, the collective of parents that are going through the same journey. So if there's no questions, put those in the chat if you have one. If not, I'll share something with you just a moment. Okay, so we have a group coaching opportunity. Again, I'm sharing this webinar initially on Sunday, October 13th. So want to give you an opportunity if you're in a place where you're like, maybe I want to try something with some other folks, not ready yet for personalized or individualized one-on-one coaching, which I do offer as well. I'm going to be opening up a 6-week virtual group coaching program called Empowered Parenting. And really what the purpose is to support you as parents of ADHD plus children in building the regulation and resilience skills by diving a little bit deeper into the parenting blueprint. And so we take a lot of time to understand the concepts of the blueprint and then how they apply to your unique individual situation, but doing it together and really gleaning from one another things that we might not even think about on our own. So there's these live group coaching meetings that we'll do every week for 6 weeks. Those are going to be on Sunday evenings. They're about 80 minutes or so. It gives us time to do some instruction, some planning, some interaction together. The program will also include 2 one-on-one coaching sessions for an hour each. And so you say, hey, I have some very specific things that I wanted to work through. But outside the group setting, you get 2 hours worth of private coaching. And then we will set up a private online community just for those in the virtual group. And I'll see which is best. We can do that online. We can do that via Facebook, whatever works for you. And then, of course, it's going to be very interactive. There's lots of exercises, lots of materials and resources that you'll gain along the way. And so this is kind of the program outline as we're working through, highlighting some of these areas as well as we're going through the blueprint. And then, as I shared with you, it's going to be on Sunday evenings starting in 2 weeks, October 27th to December 1st. We'll be meeting from 3 to 4:30 Pacific time. I think that's 6 to 7:20, 7:30 or so Eastern time. I'm only limiting it to 10 families, and the investment that is there will be $799 for everything that comes in the group coaching program. Because you have participated or you're watching this webinar, I'm offering a 30% off coupon. So instead of $799, it would be $559. What you can do is you can either scan the QR code or go to the bit.ly TIMC group. By the way, it is case sensitive, so capitals need to be capitals. And you use, when you sign up for the program, you use the coupon code group30 at checkout, and then you'll get that 30% off. And this offer will be good up until October 20th. So that's there for you. Again, if you have any questions about any of the other services that I can offer, if you're looking for, maybe I just need a quick 1-hour call. I just need maybe a 15-20 minute discovery call to see if coaching is right for me. No, I'm ready for a one-on-one, maybe a 6-week, maybe a 12-week, maybe the group coaching. And then going to our website, theimatter.co, reading the blogs, looking at the webinars and videos that I posted, those kinds of things. If you're on social media like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all those, the handle's the same. It's at the iMatter Co. If you want to get in touch with me personally through email, that's my email there, david@theimatter.co. And then we do have a Google Voice line, 209-800-4637. If you would like to just call, leave a message, text on where we can come alongside and support you. So again, just want to thank you for this time, and I'm hoping that you were able to glean a lot. Again, I will put this up on our website, so you can go to the imatter.co/media, and it'll be up there, and you can watch it and take advantage of it. And if you want to communicate or connect, just let me know. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday afternoon, and hopefully we will be in touch soon. So thank you.